Dana came out and said, whoever wins between Stipe and DC is the greatest heavyweight in UFC history. My question to you is, do you agree? Now, let me answer that back as though you asked it of me. Look, it's just an argument. There's no such thing as the great. It's kind of like the pound for pound. There's no belt, there's no tournament, there's no bracket, there's no architecture, there's no way to actually prove. And the people who sit around and discuss it are one step away from the people that sit around and argue the different possible integers as to why Batman can beat Superman. That doesn't mean it's not a real phenomenon. That doesn't mean that a guy won't sacrifice and work hard just for the chance that he's the one that comes out of that argument. It's a very real thing. So now when you have nothing that is more than an opinion, but you just got the opinion of the most influential person in the sport, who is Dana White. Yeah, I guess it's so. I guess it's so. If we can all acknowledge that it's nothing more than a debate, and the most powerful voices weighed in ahead of time of which way that pendulum's going to swing, I guess it's so. So let me ask you a follow-up question. What would some young heavyweight have to do to come and replace that? And don't forget, that's very possible. Every record is out there. The whole reason we keep records isn't to reward the person that got it. It's to encourage for somebody else to come and break it. Some people miss that. The whole reason, like if you ever had a coach or the coach is sitting you down and going, look at what this young man did, and they're holding up all his records. Yes, that's a pat on his back, but the message the coach is giving you is, you come along and take this from him. And as soon as you do, I'm going to bring somebody else up to take that from you. That's what the motivation is supposed to be. And that's why these records are important. And sometimes you end up in a real jam. I have argued for you, and I believe successfully, that George St-Pierre goes down as the greatest of all time. But George has one unique thing. And as good as Anderson is, he can't have this yet. As good as John Jones is, he can't have it yet. As good as Fedor is, do it any way you want, they don't have it. And here's what it is. George beat everybody before him. He beat everybody of yesteryear. That's what the Matt Hughes and the BJ Penn fights represented. He beat everybody of his time. That's what the John Fitches and the Josh Koscheck ×2 represented. The unique thing that George had that nobody else has, and they simply can't have it, is after he left, he beat the next generation. On George's way out the door, he took out Johnny Hendricks, who then goes on to have an era of his own. So he beat 3 different eras. The reason I say John Jones he can't do it till he leaves. It might be unfair, but it's still the situation. The reason I bring that up, you look at what happened with Klitschko and Lennox Lewis, and it's just a little bit of a timing issue. Or even of more recent memory, if you look at what happened between Floyd and Canelo, you don't just get to forever and a day say that Floyd was better and then point to the fact that they fought as evidence. That would be very good evidence. You would be right to do that, but other people would get to come in and go, now hold on just a second. Canelo hadn't been in that kind of spot before, and he was only 21 years old. And Floyd was great, but he gave him a heck of a battle, and then he came into his own. You can have all of these debates, but all that I'm proving by making these arguments to you is that it's nothing more than an argument. So if Dana comes out and says ahead of time, and by the way, he's never done this, if he says ahead of time that the winner of this fight is the greatest heavyweight ever, yeah, now that doesn't get a hold up forever, but I would think that that is so. If you're just discussing an argument, I would think that the influence that Dana brings to it does make it so. That doesn't put a damper on anybody else. Speaking of other people, because we are in a very fun time. This is absolutely contender series for the heavyweight division, which we haven't seen in a while. Why do you guys keep ignoring Curtis Blaydes? Is that personal? Tell me the truth here. I can accept the answer. I'm not buddies with Curtis. I'm not going to go tell Curtis what you said. But is that personal? Like, has Curtis done something to you? Did Curtis do an interview at some point and he came off as a jerk? Or did you catch some footage on a cell phone on some website of Curtis not being a nice guy? Like, it's seeming to me that it's very personal. And whenever Curtis tries to make his argument that he should get a title shot, people are happy to point to the fact that he lost to Ngannou, but nobody seems to want to point to the fact that a young Curtis Blaydes stepped in against Ngannou, who was unknown, got an adverse outcome, then begged for a rematch. You ever run into Sean Shelby or Mick Maynard? If you can ask him one question, why don't you ask him that? Hey guys, how hard is it to match up Ngannou? Nobody wants to fight him. Curtis went out and fought him, then begged to fight him again. And by the way, is asking to fight him a third time. He gets no credit for that. Everybody sits around and says they want a true tough guy in this sport. You have a true tough guy who follows the rules of the sport. And in a risky game like this, some go your way and some don't go your way. Curtis doesn't get any credit. None? Zero? The only thing we know is that he lost to Ngannou. No pride in walking out there for something nobody else wanted to do. I mean, I'm just looking at it and saying, okay, if you want to say Ngannou's the first pick, you're getting no pushback. But to dismiss Curtis Blaydes, who, by the way, is calling out Derek Lewis. I can think of a lot of things I don't want to do on a Saturday night. Being locked in a cage with Derek Lewis is going to have to make that list somewhere. It's going to be right up there with wearing this annoying t-shirt that for reasons unknown has a tag in the side as opposed to in the back. There's some things that you just can't explain. Why is 7 plus 5 the same number as 5 plus 7? There's some things that I just can't explain. Why does Curtis get no credit for that? I really would like to know. What has Curtis done that seems to bother you?